You are listening to the Fitz and Healthy podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lauren Fitzgerald, also known as Lauren Fitz. I'm a medical doctor, a fitness instructor, an entrepreneur, a health and fitness coach, but most importantly, I am a lover of life. And here on the Fitz and Healthy podcast, I intend to give you a ton of great information and knowledge that will serve as potential power so that you can live a life by design and make it more fits and healthy. And don't forget to listen to the disclaimer at the end. I'm not your doctor, yo. All right, enjoy the episode. Much love. Ciao. Hello and welcome to the Fitz and Healthy podcast. My name is Dr. Lauren Fitz, and I am accompanied by my beautiful co-host, Cinthanie from Cinthanie.com. What's up, girl?
Hey, girl. Hey.
Okay, so today's episode, I'm super stoked about. Are you?
I actually am, yeah.
We have been keeping this particular podcast episode a secret all week because all of us have been experimenting a little.
This is true.
And there's some good stuff that we have to talk about. So today's episode, we're talking about all things fasting.
Yes.
And this is a concept that's completely new to a lot of people, and a concept that I want to start the conversation with. So were you taken back by my proposal last week?
You know, it surprised me, but you caught me in a position where I was like, yeah, I would totally do that. Like, let's do it. So I think if it had been any other time, I would have been like, oh, I don't know. But I just was like, you caught me in a mood where I just like, yeah, let's do it.
Why not? So so we always record more times than not. We record our podcast on Fridays. And so it was last Saturday that I called Cinthanie and I was like, hey, I want to do an episode on fasting.
Yeah.
And I want us to do a week-long fast together. And she's like, all right, sounds cool. And I know for a lot of the listeners, they're probably like, what?
Yeah.
Week-long fast? And that's why I want to talk about this particular topic. And so to let the listeners know, it was you, me, my assistant, Leah, which a lot of people that follow me online already know Leah because she's my right-hand woman. She's like
Leah rocks.
Yes, Leah rocks for sure. But also my mom and your mom did it with us. So it was the five of us ladies. We all attempted to do a week-long fast. No, but here, you don't even know the whole details. So
I don't, because that's the thing. The last time we talked about like kind of where we were at was in the middle of the week. So I haven't heard like how the rest of it went for you or your mom or Leah. So I am interested to hear how it went for everybody.
Well, I'll just say that for people that are listening on the podcast, they can't see me, but right now, so most people who have listened to more than one episode of us know that Fridays are one day that we like dress up, and I say it in quotation marks, and like put on makeup and do our hair. And
exactly, that's dressing up. Is like actually getting ready for the day is us dressing up.
It's a joy of working from home because I mean, most days I don't wear makeup.
Same.
And my hair being in a bun, everyone knows the Lauren bun, # Lauren bun. But usually I'll wear, I'll do my hair on Fridays. And for those people that are watching on the Fitz and Healthy podcast, you'll notice that I've got t-shirt and shorts on, and it's just been that kind of a week. And that's the reason why I say that is because I did not survive the whole week-long fast, nor did Leah. The only one that I know of for sure that has is my mom.
Shout out to
I know, right?
So awesome.
And I know. And it's so funny because yesterday Leah sent me a text message and she's like, okay, confession time. I had to break my fast yesterday. And I was getting my lash extensions done yesterday. So
that's why we don't wear makeup.
Exactly. Exactly. Joanna Young here, live beautiful OC if you need, she's great. But anyway, so Leo was, didn't hear from me for an hour or so. And I messaged her back. I'm like, girl, don't feel bad. I could hear the guilt in her voice. And she's like, oh my gosh, that makes me feel so much better. And I haven't told my mom that I broke, because I don't want her, like, I mean, she's doing great. And I just messaged her before and she's like, I'm ready for the first meal. She goes, I miss my Shakeology. That's what I know. Isn't that funny? So, but she's doing it. So, okay. So first things first, I love the question that you asked me when I proposed the idea, like, okay, why are we doing this? Right. And what were, before this whole, like, because I gave you a few different resources to learn about fasting. So what did you know about fasting before we even started talking about it?
Well, I knew the benefits of intermittent fasting because that's a lifestyle that I follow. So I understood the fact that allowing your body time basically to work on itself without food in the equation. I understood that, but I had no idea that, like, I had heard of multiple day fasting, but I just am one of those people that was like, it doesn't apply to me. Like, I'll be fine without it. So I really didn't, honestly, like, that's one cool thing that I love is that we're always learning. Like, here on the podcast, we're always learning. Yes. And so it was cool because I didn't know anything about multiple day fasting or its benefits or at all.
So, okay. So let's just start with a lot of fears of the unknown. So fasting, first things first, has been practiced by human beings in different cultures and different religions for thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
And I mean, I now that I've learned everything that I have about fasting, I remember when because I grew up going to a Baptist church. I'm from Waco, Texas. Pretty much everyone's Baptist there. Not everyone, but you get my drift. Yeah, exactly. And so of course, I grew up going to Sunday school every Sunday. Sunday school, then followed by big church. And then Wednesday night church. And so I mean, I started reading the Bible when I was young, and so I've read the Bible, front to back too many times to count, just being raised in a Southern Baptist town, Christian home and whatnot. And the idea of the 40 days of fasting, like, to me, I just thought it was so mystical and like, how can anyone do that? But the reality is Jesus was not the only one that did a 40-day fast. And in fact, the longest, did you hear the longest fast that's ever been officially recorded?
Did he say it was a year? I want to say that he said it was a year.
Over a year.
Oh my gosh.
It's like 385 days. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
They save a lot of money not eating for 300 days.
Yeah, for real. And so the first things is I want people to be open-minded to this, because our culture, immediately the first thing that they go to is, you're going to starve yourself? What? That's not healthy. You want me to become a anorexic? No. Actually, they're on the complete opposite ends of the spectrum. Okay. Anorexia is a mental disorder. Fasting is control of when you eat and when you don't eat. And in fact, I mean, you think about it, everyone fast in some form or fashion, because you're not eating 24/7. So if you go to sleep, which of course you have to, because that's part of the way we are made, you fast overnight. And so the amount of fasting time, which you're not consuming any food, is different for everyone, right? And so the whole concept of fasting longer than overnight is something that scares a lot of people, because, well, one thing is, I know that I believe this for the longest time, is that, well, it slows down your metabolism.
Yes. Yeah. If you don't eat the minute you wake up to jumpstart your metabolism. Yeah.
I seriously, I mean, I don't think I'll ever get over the whole shake my head when I just think of the stuff that I believed. And I mean, I'm a smart cookie. I was able to graduate from medical school and get my MD and stuff, right? But so many things that I believed for the longest time around health and nutrition, just painful. So one, let's talk about, well, so you had a few questions to start. So let's start with those.
So my first question is, how do you know that you need a fast? Like, how do you know that that's something that your body needs?
Okay. So there are multiple benefits to fasting. Okay. And let's first start I think your second question was who should and shouldn't fast.
Yeah.
Let's
who's
start
fasting safe for?
Yeah. So let's start with that first, because
Okay.
there are definitely certain people that should not fast. And so I want to put that out there. So the first people are ones that we've already actually talked about, people that have eating disorders.
Yes.
So if you've ever suffered from an eating disorder, fasting is not for you.
Yeah.
So you can just, press pause on this podcast and not listen to any more of it. Actually, but here's the deal. No, I take that back. Don't press pause, because fasting might not be something that is an option for you, but it might be something that's a loved one or friend or family might need to consider. Okay.
Yes.
So another group of people that shouldn't fast are my pregos. So a lot of people
All
know
those
two of
baby
my
mamas.
all of my baby mamas that are pregos or postpartum and breastfeeding. Both of those two categories of females should not practice fasting.
Okay.
And then, of course, any fasting that you are going to do that's longer than about a 24-hour fast, officially speaking, you should do under the guidance of your medical doctor, because I am not your medical doctor.
Right.
If you didn't hear that, yeah.
Can't say that enough.
Right. I know. But truly the fact is that, that people, the more medical problems you have and the more medicines that you're on, the closer that you need to have guidance from someone that is trained in this field. Now, that being said, there are a ton of physicians that the moment you say fasting, they'll be like, no, that's not safe, because there's not a lot of good medical research. There is, and we're going to get in the show notes, we're going to give resources for people to start learning, because hopefully this podcast has opened a curiosity to fasting, so that you can continue building your knowledge. And so the book that I told Cinthanie to listen to was a book that was written by a really well-known nephrologist, which nephrologist is basically a kidney doctor. His name is Dr. Jason Fung. He's in Toronto, and he wrote it along with a very well-known podcaster named Jimmy Moore. And Jimmy Moore is known for his, he's got actually a few podcasts, but the Living the La Vida Low Carb is the one that is most popular, that a lot of people do know Jimmy Moore from. And so they co-wrote this book, The Complete Guide to Fasting. And I that was the first time that I ever really started being curious about fasting, and like, oh, okay, there's way more to it than just starving yourself, because I don't see it as starving yourself anymore, but I definitely had that mindset of starving yourself before.
One of the things that he said in the book that I thought was such a good point to really make it clear that it's not starving is that starving is something that is not done by choice, as where fasting is something that is controlled and done by choice. So there's a difference between starving because you don't have access to the nutrients and food that you need, and having access to that, but choosing not to consume it anyway. There's a big difference.
Exactly. No. And the thing that you have to remember is a good point to make that understandable is think about the Holocaust people. They were starved. They never knew when their next meal was going to be, and they didn't know if they were going to get a next meal. Fasting is, okay, today I'm going to do a 24-hour fast, and I ate my last meal at 7 p.m. So I am going to break my fast tonight at 7 p.m. Or I'm going to do a 7-day fast. And so that means the next time that I break my fast, it's going to, so you have control. Starvation people have no control. And that's, and that's the difference. So, okay. So we talked about the people that shouldn't, definitely people that like specifically, I say people with multiple medical problems, but people that are on dialysis. So that means that you have kidney failure and you go and you go to a dialysis clinic, usually 3 times a week. And basically a machine does the job of your kidneys, right?
Yeah.
And then also patients with CHF, so congestive heart failure. Those patients are the ones that are really, really sick patients that should be under definite medical supervision with anything. Especially,
what about kids? Should kids fast?
That's a great question. So kids kids are in a different category. I don't think that all kids shouldn't fast, but in our day and age of type 2 diabetes being seen in kids, I think that fasting might be a great option, but I don't think it's the very first one. And
Sure.
and this is where I would say, going and getting help from a place like the place in Toronto. It's called IDM. So it's what does it stand for? Intensive dietary management. That's their big clinic that Dr. Jason Fung runs in Toronto. And I know that they actually have patients that are like satellite patients that go to them because a majority of their patients are diabetic and have kidney disorder, because he is a nephrologist. But they've been practicing fasting with their patients for years now, and they've got so many patients that have had multiple success stories with fasting. And that's what led them to write the book, Dr. Jason Fung writing the book of The Complete Guide to Fasting. And so, and come to think of it, I don't think he ever addressed if kids should or not.
Mm-hmm.
But when I have a question that I don't know, I always look back to what before, 2017, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, like, what were the conditions that humans were given? And the fact is that it was feast or famine for humans for thousands and thousands of years. And so the mom and the dad of a family, if they were forced to fast, so was the kid. And I believe that the human body, when given the proper nutrients and the hormones are in balance, the body knows how to survive during fasting times. But should a kid, my gut would say no. But if you have a kid that's battling morbid obesity, I think that going and seeking out help from someone like Dr. Jason Fung would definitely be a very good thing to do. I think their website is idm.com. Or you can just Google the name of their institute. So getting back to the first question. So we covered who should and shouldn't fast, and then why.
Yeah. How do we need to fast?
Right.
Yeah.
So one thing I think that, because, you don't have any weight that you need to lose. And so a person like you is like, well, I don't need to lose weight, so why would I fast? Well, there's actually a lot of great reasons that everyone should put into practice fasting on somewhat of a regular basis. So the first thing that I told you about was, and I forget the doctor's name that published research on the benefits of an annual 7-day fast for cancer patients. And that was where the first official, and I don't know, first official, I'm not sure if this was the very first medical research paper that ever looked at research on fasting and cancer. But we do know that, I'm going to use a big medical term, autophagy. Autophagy happens when you participate in fast. And so what is a fast? So a fast is essentially, there are different ways to do fasting, but and he goes through the complete in the Complete Guide of Fasting, talking about just straight water fast with water and salt, because when you decrease your amount of carbohydrates that you eat, you go through diuresis, which is basically the medical term for your kidneys start peeing out a lot of the fluid. So the initial weight that is lost by most people is water weight, right?
Yeah.
Well, when you're losing liquid through the urine, your electrolytes can get out of whack. So a pure fast with just water and salt is one what you have to work up to. And one thing that I do love, and have you listened to their podcast at all?
I have not.
It's called Fasting Talk. It's a pretty new podcast. It's not quite as new as ours is, but there's a lot of great information. Dr. Jason Fung is on it, I believe, once a month. Jimmy Moore is the host, and he and Jason Fung's assistant, who's a physician's assistant. She's a PA. Ramos, what's her name? Megan Ramos, who has worked with Dr. Jason Fung at this institute for years. They talk about all things fasting, and it's fascinating because
Interesting.
There's so much to learn about fasting, and that's why this particular episode might be a little bit longer than our normal episodes, because there's so much to talk about when it comes to fasting.
Yeah.
So they talk about building the fasting muscles, because a person comes to me and is like, okay, I want to try fasting. Okay. And anyone outside of the exceptions that we already talked about can consider fasting, whether you have weight to lose, whether you're diabetic and you have a lot of weight to lose. Fasting is something that you can benefit from on a few different things. You can benefit from the autophagy. So autophagy is basically cell death, where our cells have a beginning and end of life, right? And when the cell is no longer needed, our body's way of cleaning that up and getting rid of the cellular debris was what essentially autophagy is. And there are major anti-cancer benefits from autophagy. And so fasting basically elicits cell autophagy. And so that is where that initial research paper came from. Now, one of the main reasons, and I don't know if you're going to share your story, but I know one of the main reasons that my mom wanted to participate in the fast is because a close loved one of hers just got diagnosed with cancer. And hearing the potential anti-cancer benefits of just doing an annual 7-day water salt fast, she was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it in honor of my loved one that just got diagnosed with cancer.
Sure.
That being said, it's beneficial for all of us, whether you have cancer in your family or not. We're exposed to so many things that put us at risk for cancer. Knock on wood, neither of my parents have been diagnosed with any kind of cancer, but that doesn't mean that that might not be in my future. And so I'm going to do everything to try and prevent that. And I do believe that changing our food and practices like fasting can help set us up so that we can prevent that.
Sure.
So, okay. So we've got cell autophagy. We have got hormone resetting. Okay. And this is one thing that I want people to, and this is not the first time I've said this, but people are going to get tired of hearing me say this, is that if you can look at your challenge with weight loss, not as I need to exercise more, eat less, but as, okay, I need to get my hormones balanced and I need to figure out why they're out of balance and what I can do to get them back in balance.
Yeah.
And more times than not, you want to guess which hormone it is?
Insulin.
I mean, don't get me wrong. All of the hormones are really important, but insulin is the hormone that is underestimated how freaking important. And it's what's wrong with most people in their journey of weight loss, or more times than not weight gain.
Yeah.
When you hear metabolism, more times than not, what hormone do you think of?
I don't know.
You're like, don't put me on the spot. Most people, maybe you're not most people, but most people think of the thyroid hormone.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And if they've got slow metabolism, they're like, oh, my thyroid must be out of whack. Right. And then they go to the doctor and their thyroid hormone is normal. And they're like, what the heck? And it's this snowball effect. And the fact is, it's usually not just one hormone. It's usually multiple hormones, because they all have this perfect balance. Right. But if you can get your insulin in check, then that stops the snowball effect and essentially resets it. And fasting is really good at doing that. Okay. Now, I guess it was last week that I told you that on my past lab results, I had shown already some insulin insensitivity.
Yes.
And that was
last week.
That was at 35 years. So I'm 37 and at 35. And I mean, I've literally exercised my entire life.
Yeah.
Right. And the most I've ever been overweight was in college. And I was probably about 20 pounds overweight. So I've never struggled with morbid obesity.
Yeah.
But the fact that I had insulin insensitivity should make the common person, especially the person that's followed me for any amount of time online, take a gut check and look at themselves. Like,
Yeah.
if she at that point, I mean, because I've been teaching, it's 2017. I've been teaching my dance fitness class since 2010. So that's 7 years now.
Wow.
So I've been a fitness instructor for 7 years. I've been doing fitness for a long, long time. And
Yeah.
even though I have always had exercise as part of my life, I already had insulin insensitivity.
Yeah.
And
that was well into your career. That was only
yeah.
2 years ago that you
Oh,
were told
yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah. You were quite a ways into teaching.
Oh yeah. So, and this is why, one of the reasons why I don't require it by any means, but for the people that are in my challenge group, I let them know, well, most times they don't realize that you can just get a glucometer from Amazon and it's not
Yeah.
really expensive.
Yeah.
But the fact is that, if you don't know that you've got a problem, you're not going to be able to fix it. Right.
Yeah.
And so more times than not, when I have a new client that gets into my private online group, and they start their journey with me, and they test their blood glucose, and it's way higher than they ever imagined. And who knows how long they've been walking around with high glucose, right? Yeah. So your general understanding of what insulin does, tell me, the non-medical person.
My general understanding is that insulin is the fat storing hormone. So when I eat something that spikes my insulin, it makes me store fat.
Exactly. And it brings the blood glucose into the cells. So it does those two things. It also prevents you from using your own fat to burn as fuel, right?
Yeah.
And so, something that I don't know if you watched my live broadcast that I did on my Dr. Lauren Fitz page about ketosis and
that
whatnot.
Screenshot just
yeah. No.
Somebody took a great screenshot of Lauren's live and it's hilarious. It's just so candid.
I'm cross-eyed and everything. It's a classic
but it was
Lauren.
Of that live that she's talking about.
Yes.
That came to my mind.
Yep. Well, so that particular Lauren live, I talked about, in general, because ketosis and a ketotic way of lifestyle is kind of trending right now.
Yeah,
right.
Really trendy right now.
And I hate to use the word trend because I don't think it's going to be a trend. I think it's the beginning of knowledge that people are going to be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And everyone always asks it, because I know they ask you, and I know they ask our mentor, but are you in ketosis? I think that there's a lot of benefits of ketosis. To stay in ketosis 24/7, 365 days of the year, I don't think is realistic. But if you can do it, I think there's a lot of benefit to it.
Sure.
And not just with weight loss, but with getting your insulin in check. So in the ketosis movement, you hear this whole going from sugar burner to fat burner, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the fact is that if we have high insulin levels, our body can't use our own fat storage for fuel. And so that's what they mean when they talk about making the transition to becoming from a sugar burner to becoming a fat burner. Yeah. Because the fact is, and this is, I wish that I would have come up with this analogy because it's a great analogy. But the way that we need to see that the fat on our body is like a deep freezer that's in our basement. Okay. Mm-hmm. So if you think about your body as the refrigerator that's on your, right by your garage when you unload your groceries and you put, the fresh food in your refrigerator. And then we've all been there where, you run out of food and you're like, oh, I'm going to go downstairs and look in my deep freezer. And you've got this whole basement and you can put deep freezer after deep freezer. There's unlimited space, right? So you can keep stocking your deep freezer, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't go down there until our refrigerator is depleted, right?
Yeah.
And so the way that we can see sugar and fat is most of us are sugar burners and we use the food in the refrigerator, right?
Mhm.
And we want to learn how to get into the deep freezer and start using that food as fuel instead of the stuff that's in our refrigerator, right? Because
that is a really
I
good
know,
analogy.
right? I know. When I
Yeah.
heard that, I'm like, man, why didn't I think of that? But the fact is that hunger it's truly a state of mind, because if you
Yeah.
have, oh, and you know what? I didn't mention, if you are underweight or malnutrition, fasting is not for you. And this goes into the why. So the way that we need to view fasting is that it gets us into the deep freezer, right?
Mhm.
So obviously if you're underweight or malnutrition, you don't have a deep freezer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the whole purpose of fat molecules on our body is for that deep freezer.
Yeah.
It's fuel. And so when you first start fasting, you get hungry, right?
Mhm.
Well, these hunger sensations come in waves. And so if you know that you're going to feel that way, whether you fulfill that hunger sensation with actual food or with food already stored in your body in your deep
Yeah.
freezer,
Yeah.
it's going to come and go. So it's a state of emotion that
Mhm.
will come and go. And if you know that gives you an element of control, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the fact is, you've got lots of food. Now, it might not be food that you're putting in your mouth, but you got that on your abdomen, you got it on your ass, you got it on your thighs, you got it on,
Yeah.
and some of us have more than others, right?
Yeah.
But that's what we want. That we want to be able to get in and unlock that basement
Yeah.
so that we can get to the deep freezer and start using that food that has been building up for years.
Yeah.
And the fact is, that is why fasting is not dangerous. But it scares people because, oh, I'm going to starve. No, you're not. You have food source. It's
Yeah.
on your ass,
You
guys.
have fuel and it's
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's right. And Robert's gonna have to delete that out, because I really do want these podcasts. Yeah, I want these podcasts to be able to a mom listening in the car with their kid, and
Yeah.
I realize not all moms want their kid to hear the A word. So,
But you know what? If I can just say one thing, if
Yes.
parents say that they have not sworn in front of their kids,
this is true.
that's a big old lie.
This is true. This is
I
true.
don't believe you.
I agree. Although
your kid has heard that word before. I know.
Although
they have.
I actually did not hear my mom. I probably can count on one hand how many times I've heard my mom cuss, and it was all since I've been an adult. But
well, then you're a rare exception.
I know.
Did you hear your dad swear as a kid?
Not often, but I heard him.
Kids hear it. I'm just gonna say kids.
Yeah,
hear it.
yeah, true. And especially nowadays. I mean, if you know, as long as Anyway, we could go off on a tangent. Hey, did you see my mug, by the way?
I love your mug.
It says kind of classy, kind of hood. And of course here, I'll do it for the people that are watching, because of course it goes with my t-shirt that says, drink some coffee, put on some gangster rap, and own it. I mean,
yes.
I literally I have to drink out of this mug when and both of these were given to me by really good friends, Helen and Amanda. Shout out to you guys. Love you ladies. But anyway, so back to where we were talking about. So yeah. So did I answer fully the first two questions? Because you had three questions.
Yes.
Okay. What was your third question?
So my third question is, what should you do to prepare for a fast?
All right. That's a good question. Let's hold that thought. Let me talk about the different kinds of fast before we go into that. Okay.
Perfect.
So you've already mentioned intermittent fasting, right? And that actually is a great place to start. Okay. And intermittent fasting is becoming more and more accepted and understood now that people are being open about it. And I feel like fitness professionals have kept it secret for the longest time because it's not a new concept, but it's a concept that a lot of fitness professionals have practiced secretly and not told anyone. And I understand the why, because for the longest time we were taught, well, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And you have to eat six meals and blah, blah, blah. I like all of this bro science. I was going to throw that out there. Right. but so when you're in the fitness industry and you're like, well, I'm not hungry in the morning and I just listen to my body, so I don't eat until like 11 or 12. You feel like there's something wrong with you because you're supposed to be a fitness professional, but
you're supposed to be setting an example to eat the most important meal of the day.
Exactly. But I hope by now our listeners know that there is zero science that backs that. This is something that Kellogg's, that General Mills, that bagel companies, that all these big food companies that make money on you believing that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and if you don't eat it, you're going to slow down your metabolism and you're going to die.
It's a slogan, not science.
Not at all. Not at all. And I mean, it goes back to, just think about when our caveman ancestors, they didn't have refrigeration, guys.
Yeah.
Like literally, that's why the whole feast or famine happened.
Yeah.
Because when they would have a kill, the whole tribe would eat the animal and then they might go days fasting before they got their next kill, especially people that, lived in places like that had winter, there was no 7-Eleven at the corner where you could just drop in and get, your 6 meals a day. Like that's not the way humans were made. And so the whole concept, you need to just give up that belief that I have to eat first thing in the morning, because actually a lot of people, and I've talked about this before, I just thought I had a fast metabolism, even though I was carrying extra weight. But I would always get hungry in the first hour or two after eating breakfast. And I would just, and granted, I was in better shape than most of the people that I worked with in medicine, and I guess that's why I convinced myself, well, I've just got a high metabolism. But the fact is, I mean, I carrying extra weight, and it's not because I had that fast metabolism, it's because what I was eating. And so intermittent fasting is a great place to start. And for, the listener who has no idea what I'm talking about, this is where you take a 24-hour period and you figure out, okay, I break my fast breakfast at whatever time, and then my last meal is at whatever time. So let's just say, for ease sake, you wake up and you eat breakfast at 7, and then you're done eating by 7 p.m. So your eating window is 12 hours, right? And your fasting window is 12 hours. And so intermittent fasting is where you basically just decrease the eating window and increase the fasting window. And a standard approach that you hear from a lot of people is the either 8 and math in public, 8 and 16, or the 6 and 18. Yep. Right there. Math in public. Thank you very much. Trust me, I am a doctor, guys. I promise. But that being said, people will push that even beyond and do 1 meal a day. And then, so that's intermittent fasting within a 24-hour period that you've got a eating window and a fasting window. Okay. So the next step is this where the unknown and people get a little scared, right? Because a majority of people have never gone 24 hours without eating, on purpose, at least. Right. And so when someone like you or I come along and tell, hey, why don't you try a 24-hour fast? And they're like, but I'm going to starve. Nope. You got a deep freezer, girl. That needs to be put in a t-shirt. Get into your deep freezer. No, but so that is, if you want to start with fasting, start obviously intermittent fasting, and just know fasting is not going to kill you. It especially, I mean, as long as you're not, of course, in one of the categories that shouldn't be fasting.
Right.
Not only is it not going to kill you, but it's going to give you a lot of great benefits, right?
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's literally like what's in my mind right now as you're saying that. Robert's shaking his head.
Yep. We're special. We're special. So
no shame.
so the 24-hour fast is something that some people practice once a week. Like, in fact, the chick that owned the cryotherapy place that I went to in OKC, she and her husband practiced a 24-hour fast once a week. And that's something that actually a lot of people that I have followed online or listened to podcasts practice. Then you get into a little bit more advanced alternate day fasting. So on the day that you fast, you fast. On the day that you eat, you feast. Now, a common mistake is not feasting. And this is one thing. And of course, like, I can't cover everything that I've learned so far about fasting. And this is where I really want to challenge people to start learning more about it.
Yeah.
And the fasting talk is a great place to start. The podcast. But I would recommend going and buying the Complete Guide to Fasting for anyone that wants to learn more about it, for sure. Such a great book.
As somebody who is non-medical, it is broken down in such a great way that you still understand it. It's not above your head. It's very simple. It's a really, really good place to start.
And wasn't it eye-opening?
Yeah, it really was. Like, the things that he was saying, like, it just made so much sense. But I would have never put the two and two together on my own. But once he said that, I was like, oh, like, that makes total sense.
Yes. I mean, I felt the same way, and I'm a physician. It was almost like, why did I not learn this in medical school? Because this makes so much more sense, right? So alternate day fasting, that is where usually the next step for people that have done intermittent fasting. And like, for me, I actually started with intermittent fasting. I started with essentially what Dave Asprey, the Bulletproof Coffee guy, he coins as bulletproof intermittent fasting. So and the whole reason why he calls this bulletproof fasting is because we know that macronutrients like fat don't spike your insulin the same way that, of course, carbohydrates spike your insulin the most, but protein spikes your insulin as well. Not as much as carbohydrates, but fat, out of the three macronutrients of fat, carbohydrates, and protein, fat spikes your insulin the least. And so that's the whole concept that he says of, essentially, you can have bulletproof coffee or whatever kind of coffee or tea that has healthy fats in it, because it won't spike your insulin. And that's ultimately the goal when people try ketosis or try fasting, is that you're wanting to play around with your insulin and try to reset it. Right?
I always wondered the difference and how that like bulletproof intermittent fasting was okay. Cause for some reason, like, in my mind, it's always anything over 50 calories is going to break your fast. But now that you say that and explain that, it makes sense as far as ketosis and, like you said, the macronutrients and how your body metabolizes that makes sense.
Right. Because when you're in ketosis, your insulin levels are low. And this is why ketosis is really a beneficial state for a lot of people to be in. Yeah. Especially those people that have insulin insensitivity. I mean, literally one thing that I love about the Fasting Talk podcast is that, I think it's like the third week of every month, they interview and bring onto the show one of the patients from their IDM clinic there in Toronto. And just the stories that you hear, like, I just listened to one earlier this week. This guy literally, like, he talked about his whole, I think his name was Mark. He talked about his whole history. I mean, sick as crap. And he has been fasting for 4 months, and he is off all diabetic medicines. He's like literally off of almost all, like, it's crazy. The therapeutic benefits of fasting and going into ketosis to reset your hormones is just, it's phenomenal. And I think that
empowering to know that it's something so simple that you can do.
Yes. But the sad thing is, most diabetic doctors don't know, or if they know, they can't put it into practice because they're afraid of being sued. Because the fact is that until there's good medical research, and I mean, you're constantly, as a physician in the United States, you're constantly worried about getting sued because anyone can sue you for anything.
I can imagine.
And so you're, one of the many reasons that I left medicine was because you're in this really difficult place, especially if you are in the know. Like, I can't imagine the physicians that are still practicing that have actually started to learn about nutrition and they know the answer, but they know that if officially speaking, they give this patient, this advice and something happens, not necessarily because of the advice, but just because they're sick patients, then that patient can come back and sue them. So, I mean, it's a terrible place
and there's no money to be made in fasting. Like you said before, there's no money to be made. If you fast and get off your medications, where does that leave med companies to make money from you?
Oh yeah. Well, and that's one thing that I talked about on one of my live broadcasts. I can't keep up. I have too many live broadcasts. But the fact is, if in an ideal world, if all of us learned and put to practice what good nutrition is, started fasting on a regular basis, big industries would go under. Big pharmaceutical, big food, medicine, and probably our government would too, because literally, and will that day ever happen? No, but it's small voices like yours and mine. You have a smaller voice than me, just for the record, and it has nothing.
No, I don't.
Your volume kills me. That's the only thing I mean. I love you. Diaphragm. Use your diaphragm. Your diaphragm and there's two diaphragms, and I'm talking about your muscle diaphragm. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do know. I'm picking up what you're throwing down. And I said that from my diaphragm.
Yeah. Love it. Sorry.
Robert wants to kill me.
Right?
For those of you that are listening, Robert is our producer, and he's always sitting and recording. He produces our podcast, so he hears us talk, and he just sits here and shakes his head.
We
everything that we say.
Yep, pretty much. Okay, so back focus. Too many squirrels today.
Squirrel.
Yep. So we were talking about alternate day fasting, right? So alternate day fasting is a great next step. Okay. Then multiple day fast. That is where things get crazy. Okay. Now, everything that I have learned and experienced myself. So I've actually done a 7-day fast before. I got into the fast by essentially drinking high fat stuff to get me into ketosis. So like bulletproof coffee, because if you are in a ketosis state, it's easier to make the transition to a fasting, date, whether it be you want to fast for a day or 3 days or 7 days or whatever. Everything that I have read, learned, and experienced myself, the first 2 days of fasting are the hardest, for sure. And most people think that, and you're smiling because should we tell them? I think this is a great, go.
We can. Okay. So when Lauren proposed this idea to me, I had already kind of been fasting that day because I just didn't have an appetite that day. I wasn't hungry yet. She called me and we talked about it. And I was like, okay. I was like, I'll start today because I haven't eaten anything today. So the first 2 days of our 6-day fast, I rocked it. Like, I felt so good. And I was like, Lauren, talking about how the first 2 days are hard. Like, I wasn't even hungry, wasn't even tempted to eat anything, didn't have any I'm so hungry, nothing. And then the 3rd day came.
Tell the lovely listeners what happened on the 3rd day.
All I can say is it's going to be a long time before I can ever drink bone broth again. So I know that I promised you on a earlier episode that I would drink it more consistently. Well, that I would make it. I've been drinking it, but that I would make it.
Right.
Yeah, I might be sticking to my collagen peptides powder for a while because homegirl didn't have anything in her stomach except for water and bone broth. And I vomited bone broth first thing in the morning, and I text Lauren and I was like, what happened? I was so mad because, like you had talked about, the 3rd day is when you get into the anti-cancer benefits and all that kind of,
Yes.
and the hormone balancing and all that. And that's what I really like wanted. And I was so excited about it. So the first 2 days I was like, I got this. Like we were in a group text and everybody's like, yeah, Cinthany's rocking. I was like, yep, your girl's rocking it. And then the third day I was like, well, sorry guys, I'm out. But you have to listen to your body. I was just mad that my body gave out before my mind did. Because mentally, like I was on it. I was good.
Yeah.
So that sucked.
Yeah. Well, and there's a few good points in that story that I want to make. One is that you still had some benefits from autophagy and from hormones.
Sure.
And then just because you didn't last the full initial 7 days that we had planned, doesn't mean that you failed. And that's the beautiful thing about fasting is that it's they call it your fasting muscle. There's not really a muscle, but it's just like the person who's never been to the gym. You can't go and expect to lift weights like the bodybuilder that's there every day. So the fasting muscle, you start off with intermittent fasting, and then you start with your first 24-hour fast. And then, okay, you've got that down. So let's look at maybe a 3-day fast, 7-day fast. But the record for the longest fast, I think it's 384 days. And this guy started off, he was over 450 pounds, and literally for that entire time, he drank water, had a multivitamin, and took minerals, I believe. So, and he didn't survive. And he didn't survive. He survived. I
was like, wait, what?
Wait, what?
It's like, I didn't hear about that.
What I meant to say was he, not only did he survive, but he kept his weight off. And the guy sits at, I believe, like 180 pounds now and has stayed there. Yeah. So, I mean, that should give our listeners hope that have battled morbid obesity their whole life. Like if you can get your hormones into check, you can get control of your life again. But the longer that you have been hormonally imbalanced, the longer it takes to get it back. So, if someone has just, unofficially been battling insulin insensitivity for a year, it's going to take that person way less time than someone who has been battling obesity for decades of their life.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So the other thing that I wanted to point out from your story was that any of the experts that are in the realm of fasting, and there's not too many experts. And so I'm going to refer to Dr. Jason Fung multiple times.
Sure.
They always say that you have to listen to your body, and nausea, that's your body's way of saying, all right, time to finish, time to turn this off. And ideally we probably, looking back, we probably should have said no more before you vomited. I mean, honestly, but it's a learning experience. I hopefully didn't ruin bone broth for you your entire life.
I'm sure I'll come back around, but it's going to be a little bit.
and so I'm sure the listeners like, well, bone broth, wait, where'd that come from? So
weren't you fasting?
Yeah. So bone broth is one of the options that they talk about, because there's different ways to fast, and the hardcore fasters. So like Jimmy Moore, he's been practicing fasting. So he actually had his own, he has his own story. He used to be morbidly obese and has lost, all of his weight via practicing a low carb life and putting fasting into practice. And so,
he has a really amazing story.
Yes. Yes. And if you haven't found him on podcasts, I would highly recommend him.
Yeah,
for sure. He's goofy. Like he's my kind of goofy.
Yeah.
So, but he says when he fasts, all he does is water and salt. But then you listen to Megan Ramos, who is the Dr. Jason Fung's PA. And she's like, when I do it, I'll use bone broth, because bone broth helps me get through. And almost, she said sometimes she even will put it in a bowl and use a spoon. So it tricks her mind like she's eating something, right? Put a little parsley in it and that right there. So there's different ways. And that's why I love the Complete Guide to Fasting, because they talk about the different ways that you can practice fasting and ultimately build up, because the hardest way to fast is just water and salt. Right. Yeah. And so Leah lasted up until, I want to say we both broke our fast on Wednesday, and unbeknownst to each other, like she admitted to me yesterday, Thursday.
Which is so funny because when I had that problem come up, I didn't say it in the group text because I didn't want to get inside anybody else's head and somebody else be like, wait, there's throwing up going on. Is that going to happen to me? Like I didn't. And so I only told you because I was so worried that I was going to get inside Leah's head.
Yep.
So for selfish reasons, I feel a little bit better that you guys lasted one day longer, because technically you guys did it for 2 days then, right? Because I started a day ahead of everybody. Okay.
Yeah. So my first full day was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and I broke it on Wednesday. So almost 4 full days that I fasted.
Okay. Nope. Yeah. Then I
yeah. No, but that's the thing. It's not it's not a competition.
But you can't help but you can't help but be a little competitive. Like when you're doing something with other people, that's just my personality.
I know. And the nice thing is, it is nice to have someone to do it with. It
keeps you accountable.
For accountability's sake.
Yeah.
But that being said, I would also, if you're going to fast, I wouldn't go announce it to the world because, one, they'll be like, you're going to starve yourself. And like, shut it. You don't even know. I don't want to even hear. Yeah. But then, people will try and purposefully tempt you. And so that's
vicious.
Yes. So if you are, listening to this and you're like, okay, I think I might want to consider doing my own fast, I wouldn't go announce it to the world. But if you have someone that's like-minded, like Cinthanie and I mean, granted, she's much younger than me, but we're both like-minded females. And like, I knew
too much.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of weird. But I knew that the moment that I came up with that idea last Saturday, I knew that you'd be down for it.
Yeah.
So, and having other people to do it with definitely helps. I just think it's funny. Now, I haven't even asked, how's your mom?
So she hasn't done it yet. Because she had just gone grocery shopping the day that we decided. And she was like, well, I can't start today because I just bought all these groceries. So she and my dad, I think, are starting it on Monday is what she told me.
Okay.
So
okay.
We'll report back about that.
No, that's good. And in fact, I'm actually going to try it again because I would like to complete a full, because when I did it the 7-day, it wasn't fully just water and salt, and I would like to do that. And that's the thing, like I'm not letting myself feel like I failed because I initially planned on making it 7 days. I didn't, but I listened to my body because I definitely I pushed myself to the point of stress that I was like not feeling well, and that's where I listen to my body. I'm like, I need to break my fast and eat.
I think that's why I felt disappointed about it, is because, like I said, is my body gave out before my mind did, because it's more so a mental game. And for some reason, like I was on it. I was so I was unbothered. And so I was just so upset over the fact that my body gave out before my mind did. But at the same time, I would be so stupid to not listen to my body for the sake of being like, well, no, it's fine. I can get over it. Like, that's a little irresponsible. So you do need to listen to your body.
Exactly. For sure. And that's the thing. Like, honestly, I think a misconception, you were exception to the rule, because usually the first 2 days are the hump to get past.
I think the reason why the first 2 days were pretty easy for me is because I had just done a 21-day cleanse. And so my mindset was just different from going into it eating normal every day. I really think that's why I was unbothered.
Definitely.
If it had been any other time, I probably would have been like, no, I can't do this.
Yes. Well, and I mean, I think the people that struggled the most with a fast are the people that are eating the standard American diet.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you're already
the people
eating
that eat it the most.
Well, yeah.
The people
absolutely.
That struggle the hardest are
absolutely. If you I've got to sneeze. Hold on 2 seconds.
Bless you.
It's gonna go away. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry, Robert.
Hashtag real life.
Yep, exactly. So if you already practice a higher fat, lower carbohydrate, moderate protein lifestyle, getting into a fast is going to be easier for you. That being said, I think a lot of people that say they've tried to, try a ketosis way of life, you don't really know if you're in ketosis unless you're actually measuring your ketones.
Yeah.
And so
This is true.
This great segue to the different ways that you can measure your ketones. And so, Cinthanie, you surprised me when you sent me that little picture of what you already had.
So, and this is the only time, just for the record, that I've ever peed on a strip. Just saying. But Robert, shut up. But the funny thing is Robert makes comments and only Lauren and I can hear him. You can't hear him on the recording, but y'all don't know the stuff he says.
For real.
But the reason why I peed on the strip is because I had ketone pee strip tests. So you pee on it, and then on the bottle that the strips come in, there's like a little diagram that shows different shades. And so depending on what shade the strip turns will determine how many ketones are in your blood. If you have
in your urine.
If you have a high trace of ketones, small trace, whatever. So that's what I was using to track my ketosis while we were doing the fast.
And that's the cheapest way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, so let's talk about the 3 ways that you can test for ketones in your body.
Yeah.
Is urine, blood, and breath. Okay. Urine, the pee strips are the cheapest way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're a good way to see if you initially get into ketosis.
Yeah.
But if you are the mindset that, hey, I want to try and be in ketosis for the next few months and see how I feel, it's not a great way to track and make sure that you stay in ketosis.
Yeah.
So like for you, it was good for you because you in the transition into fasting, you went from, non-ketosis to ketosis. So urine strips like that work for you. But if you were to have stayed fasting and then you want to stay in ketosis for the rest of the month, because originally that's actually why
that was our plan.
Yeah, that was the plan because can I share that you struggle with PMS?
Yes,
and
I put it on Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, it's out there, girl, no shame.
So
this all originally stemmed from.
Yes. Is Cinthanie made this post about being a raging, during that time of the month. And the symptoms that come along with PMS range from, bad mood to bad cramps to all sorts of stuff. And I definitely believe that the people that have the worst symptoms along with that time of the month are the ones that your hormones could be a little bit more balanced. And so, and especially insulin. And so that's why I wanted to kind of experiment with you, because I know that when you are in ketosis, your insulin levels are low, and to see if that would help your PMS symptoms at all.
Yeah.
Because, ultimately your N of 1 is you. And if it helps control that time of month and, not just the raging, symptoms, but
crazy woman.
Yeah. But cramps and all sorts of stuff, like, it's worth a try. Right.
Mm-hmm. That's why I was so down to do it too, because like I didn't even want to be around me. So I was like, okay, like I can't feed like this. Like, this isn't going to work. And so I put it on Facebook because it's either like Ask Facebook or WebMD. WebMD is going to tell you that you die. So I just wanted to know if like, I knew that I couldn't be the only person that's that way. I know I can't be.
Yeah.
You're crazy to ever think that you're the only person that experiences what you experience in anything.
Right.
So yeah.
And usually when you make posts like that, you realize like, oh, wow, not only am I not alone, but like almost everyone feels that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Like my post about the nails, like, please explain the, what are they called? The pointy nails? There was a name for them.
Stiletto nails.
Stiletto nails.
There's coffin nails.
Oh, goodness. I still don't get it. I really don't. I mean, Melissa has stiletto nails, right?
No, she has coffin nails.
Coffin. What's the difference?
Stiletto is pointy, like a talon, like a bird claw.
I love your face. You're like,
if you don't watch us on YouTube, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Just saying.
Special. We're special.
Coffin is when it's flat across the top. So it's not like a talon. It's dull. I like that shape. When I get my nails done, that's the shape that I do.
Okay.
Because why I do it is because I have really short fingers. So I have like little boy hands. You're laughing because you're looking at them and you see how tiny they are.
I do.
So if I have long nails, they look feminine instead of look like little boy hands. So that's why I choose it, in case you want to know. I don't know how we got on this. Anyways.
I know. We have squirrels everywhere.
Squirrel is really bad today. Squirrel syndrome.
3 hours later, right? Okay. So let's get back to topic. So the long-term fasting, this is something that I don't feel like I am failing. The fact that I didn't get to 7 days, right?
Yeah,
but the fact is that like I'm primed where I don't have any food in my refrigerator. I don't have any tempting food in my pantry. And this is the perfect place to be because I don't have any travel coming up. Like the next time I'm traveling is in about a month when I go to New Orleans. So like the timing is perfect for my life. And the fact is that if you can get past the first 2 days, which are typically the most strugglesome. Did I just make up a word? I did. I'm pretty sure I did.
Dictionary.
Yep. The first 2 days are the most difficult of fasting. And then once you get into day 3, for most people, it's easy. And it's a surprise to them for the first time that they're fasting. They're like, I don't want to eat. And it's because you've gone into that fat burning mode and you have unlocked the door to your basement and you're now digging into the food that you have in the deep freezer. And that's the thing. Like when you're tempted with that wave of hunger or two that you know predictably is going to come, then you can tell yourself, oh, it's going to be fed. It's going to be fed with the food that's in my butt right now. Although I would rather it not go to the butt first because I like having a little bit of booty. I'm just playing. Other brothers can't deny. When a girl walks in with itty bitty waist and around thick in your face, you get sprung.
We're too much.
I know.
We're too much.
Right.
Robert says we're violating so many copyrights.
Oh my gosh, dude! When I was in Japan and we would go karaoke, like I don't sing. I would love to be able to sing, but I don't sing. So I rap, and so that was my go-to karaoke song because I can.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Okay. Squirrels again.
Anyways, we like it to burn the fat in, but that's like you can't choose like the ideal area.
I know.
You can't pick and choose. It would be cool. But...
It would be. Yeah. But the fact is that any weight loss that happens in the first few days, I think they say on average, people lose half a pound to a pound a day on fasting. And especially in the first few days of fasting, it's mostly water weight. Yeah. Continuing to practice fasting and building that fasting muscle is a great way for people that have a lot of weight to lose to lose it. Because let's say your first full fast, you lose 10 pounds, but you gain 6 of it back. Well, overall, you're still down 4 pounds overall, right? Yeah. And then the next time you fast, you go longer and you're able to drop 15 pounds. And in that, you only gained back 8 of the 15. And so you're going in the right direction. And every time that you fast, you are getting your insulin more sensitive and reset. Why do you look like you're about to giggle?
Can we... Big butts is still going through my head right now. Can we clarify? Dang it. Can we clarify that the weight loss comes not from starving yourself, but from the fact that you're going into fat burning mode?
Yes. Okay. And that's a good point, because one thing that they talk about is, sorry, I just totally
took a big old sip of coffee.
Yep. So one big mistake that you don't want to make is when you eat, you don't want to caloric restrict or calorie restrict, because that is when you'll actually slow down your metabolism. So when you're fasting, fast, but when you feast, and don't worry about calories. Feed your body with higher fat, lower carbohydrate, moderate protein. If you can, try and stay in ketosis, but that brings me back to I didn't even finish the point of
Man,
how to.
We've been really squirrely
I
today.
know. Jeez. But there's a lot of great information. And,
I know.
the fact
it's
is,
hard
this
to pick
is
one thing to say about it. Yeah.
This is going to be the first of many fasting talks that we're going to have for sure. Okay. So you don't know if you're in ketosis unless you measure, right? And so if you, like for me, I'm going to try and do a 7-day fast. So today and tomorrow, I am going to use bulletproof coffee and healthy fats to get me into ketosis. And I'm going to measure that by using my blood ketometer, which is basically, I got it online at Amazon. It's Precision Extra, and it has ability to measure my blood glucose and blood ketones. And the strips for the ketones are expensive. And so it's the most accurate way to measure your ketones, but it's the most expensive. The measuring by breath ketones is pretty much just as accurate. And there's,
which is interesting because I've never heard of that one. I only knew of the blood and the P test.
I actually just ordered mine just because it's something that I want to measure on a regular basis. Like I've been watching my blood glucose now for a while. Like I'm aware, like for me, I don't eat a lot of fruit because it definitely spikes my blood glucose. And even though I'm just eating, blueberries and blackberries and the good superfoods, when I eat fruit, it spikes my blood glucose. And what that means is that it's messing with my insulin. And so everyone's different, but this is why, my carbohydrates that I eat strictly are from veggies and from Shakeology. And it's about anywhere from 10 to 15% of my daily intake. But protein is something that a lot of people don't realize. They just assume, well, I'm eating high fat, low carb, moderate protein, so I'm in ketosis. Well, you actually don't know if you're in ketosis unless you measure. And a lot of people don't realize that eating too much protein will take you out of ketosis. Because like I said in the beginning, carbohydrates spike your insulin the most, but protein also spikes your insulin. And so if you're eating more protein, especially if you're not eating enough fat, then you will get out of ketosis. And a lot of people don't realize that. So
I didn't know that.
So if you want to experiment with how your body does in ketosis, then measuring it is definitely the best way to do it. There are a few. Ketonix is the brand of device that I have that measures your breath, and you can get that thing, and it's reusable for like 1,000 times. So instead of buying the ketone strips for my glucometer and ketometer, which is like $1 a strip, I mean, it's expensive. It's it's someone that I like to experiment on myself and whatnot, but just the average person that doesn't, it's.
I have used one before, but I used it sparingly because of that.
Exactly.
I didn't want to waste it.
Exactly.
I was going to be mad if I had used a strip and it didn't say I was in ketosis.
Yeah, for real. Or if you prick your finger and there's not enough blood and it only goes halfway.
Your finger.
But if the blood only goes halfway down the ketone strip and it's not enough, and it's like, because you only get so much time, and I'm like squeezing it like a turnip, like, come on, blood, come on. So that being said, if you want to experiment with ketosis, whether it's, when you're fasting, you're in ketosis. Okay.
And that's nutritional ketosis or no?
No. So full fasting is not nutritional ketosis. So a lot of people that practice ketosis as a way of life are in nutritional ketosis. Okay. So at any point in time, you measure their blood ketones, and they're usually above 0.5 to 0.7 millimoles. And most people stay between about 1 and 2. But depending on if you're doing a full fast, I mean, you can get your ketones pretty high. The highest I've ever seen mine are, I believe, like 6.5. And that was when I did the 7-day fast. And that's been a while since I've done it. So I did it earlier in the year, I believe. So that's why I was like disappointed in myself that I didn't last all 7 days. But I I lasted for 4 days, and I definitely did some good for my insulin, and now I'm going to do it again. But like Wednesday and yesterday I feasted. I didn't restrict my calories. I ate high fat. I didn't eat processed grains or sugar. I stuck to my high fat, low carb, moderate protein way of eating. And that makes it easier when you're experimenting with fasting, right? So that being said, the whole fasting experience. So you are not only resetting your insulin, but you are getting some cellular autophagy. Okay. And this is something that I believe will be researched a little bit closer and will lead to discoveries in the fields of cancer and autoimmunity. But if there are medical research studies that do that, I would be surprised, because like you said, there's no money to be made. And if there's no money to be made, because I mean, come on, you're not buying any food. More times than not, when you learn to fast and learn to get your body's hormones in check, you don't need medicines, and then you don't need doctors, and then all of a sudden you're like, what? So
you're not spending money, and nobody is going to spend money to prove research that you don't need to spend money.
Exactly. It's crazy because I heard the physician, the nephrologist in Canada, Dr. Fung, he was interviewed. I don't even remember where I heard him say this, but so anytime that you in medical research, you have to jump through hoops to get a research project approved. And one of the things one of the first steps is you have to be approved by an ethics committee. Like, is it ethical? Like, I'm about to give arsenic to all these people to see if arsenic kills people or not. No, that's not ethical, right? And that's obviously an extreme example, but to get approved to do a study, an ethics committee has to approve it, right? So Dr. Fung has like over 1,200 different patients that he's been treating for a long time now. And he put in, I think he said 2 different applications to do a retrospective study. So that means he's not doing any new study. He's just looking at all of the data from all of his past patients to look at fasting and what it's done to them. So nothing new is going to be happening. And both of them were denied. And I just can't help but think that there's more to it than, because if that were to be approved, then it would go on to potentially show that, maybe fasting might be the cure to diabetes instead of metformin and glucophage and all of these different diabetic medicines. And it just, and again, this is why I left medicine, because I went into medicine to help people. And there's just so many conflicts of interest in that world of big medicine, big pharmaceutical, and big food.
That's why you're on the preventative side of it now.
Exactly. Okay. So where do we start? Have we covered your 3 questions, first of all? I don't remember the third question. Help me out.
What should you do to prepare for a fast?
Okay.
We kind of covered that by talking about like what you're eating and stuff like that beforehand.
Okay. And that's good. So to recap the answer to that, if you want to make the transition to a fast easiest as possible, I would definitely change from your SAD diet, your standard American diet, and start practicing a higher fat, lower carbohydrate, moderate protein diet. But having exogenous ketones to help get you into a state of nutritional ketosis will definitely help, because when you get into nutritional ketosis, so like, for instance, I would get into nutritional ketosis by drinking bulletproof coffee, because the brain octane, which is the caprylic acid, so that's basically an MCT oil. It's C8 MCT oil. That is an exogenous ketone, and that's one of the things I talked about in the live broadcast that you're referring to, the great screenshot. Because there's a lot of confusion regarding exogenous ketones, and a lot of people think that I'm taking this. And more times than not, it's an MCT oil and that means that I'm in fat burning mode and I can eat whatever I want. Well, no, that's not what it means.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes you see these people that think or have convinced themselves that they're doing good. And really it's a temporary, well, it's just not good. I'll just say that. But the exogenous ketones can help to get you into that nutritional ketosis so that you can make the transition to fasting a lot easier. Or you can just do it the old traditional way, meditate and be like, okay, today is day one of my fast. I contemplated doing that today, but I drank bulletproof coffee instead.
And if you start with intermittent fasting too, and work your way up to a bigger fast, if you're wanting to do a multiple day fast, start with intermittent fasting, and then start with, what was it you said? Alternate day fasting?
Alternate day fasting. Yep.
Then multi-day fasting.
Yep. And I'll never forget the first time that I did a full 24-hour fast. I kind of, got past my barrier of thinking I'm going to starve. I'm like, no, you're not going to starve. And like, it was empowering to realize like, you know what, I do have control over this. And that's the beginning of me practicing my, building my fasting muscles, if you will.
Yeah.
So, okay. So obviously we could talk all day and I don't want this to turn into an episode that's forever hours, but I hope that we have at least opened up curiosity and gotten people to start becoming open-minded to the fact that maybe fasting isn't the bad thing that everyone thought it was, that it's not starving, that it's a tool in your tool belt that is easy, that's pretty much for almost everyone, that's really cheap, and it could be the thing that you're missing.
Yeah.
Because here's the deal. This is going to speak to a lot of people that are listening. If you keep doing the same thing, cutting your calories, exercising more, if it's not working, why don't you try something else? Well, because guess what? If you didn't listen to last week's episode, you need to listen to it, because it's not calories in versus calories out. It's biology. It's not physics. And our biology is jacked because of the food we're eating, the environment that we live in, how we're treating our body. Our hormones are out of whack, and insulin is probably the hormone that's the most important in regards to your waistline, your health, and all of the other weight associated medical problems like diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
And it's within your power. And, obviously every episode that we talk about, I want the listener to feel empowered. That, okay, this knowledge, this gives me potential power to gain control of my life and live the life by design that we're all meant to live, but most people choose not to. So are there any other points that you wanted to, or any questions that you had that haven't been answered?
I don't think so, but I don't think that this will be the last that we experiment with this either. So I'm sure more things will come up as we further do this research on ourselves.
Most definitely. And you know what I just realized? Totally a host fail. I forgot to do the iTunes review of the week at the beginning of the show.
Oh no.
And you had a co-host fail last week. You forgot it completely because my
hairband broke.
Oh, that's awesome.
I have crazy hair.
Yep.
Just gonna roll with it.
Yep, just roll with it because the wild hair looks awesome on you, girl.
Oh my god.
But the fact is that we launched, so today is the 16th of June. So we launched a month and a half ago, and we have almost 43,000 downloads and 139 reviews.
5-star reviews, all
5-star.
5-star.
That's awesome. So
can't leave that part
yes.
out.
So we want to start featuring the iTunes review of the week, and usually we will do it at the first, but today is an exception because we got squirrels everywhere. Yep, exactly. So would you like to read the iTunes review of the week?
Yes, I
As
will.
your hair looks awesome.
Literally look
girl,
at it.
Girl, seriously, you look beautiful no matter what.
Well, we're just going to roll with it, whether it looks good or not.
Exactly.
Okay, so information and inspiration. This is a 5-star review from Billy Gish. It said, these two ladies are full of both information and inspiration. They speak on a wide variety of topics and bring wealth of knowledge to the table. Definitely 2 thumbs up and a 5-star all the way.
Oh, thank you, Billy.
Thank you, Billy. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, we read every single review, and my cheeks hurt after reading them because they're totally they make us smile. So we appreciate you guys taking the time to go to iTunes and leaving a review, because did you ever figure out how to do it? You didn't, did you? I could. I knew the answer. Shouldn't have even asked you. For real. Jeez.
Squirrel.
Seriously though, taking the time to figure out how to leave a review. iTunes doesn't make it easy.
Yeah.
So those of you that have figured out how to leave the review and taking the time to write something nice, we really appreciate it greatly.
So clearly I have not reviewed how I feel about this podcast.
Right.
Coming soon.
Exactly. So hopefully we have answered a lot of the questions that you've had about fasting. I can't think of anything else that I want to open up before we end this our very first episode about fasting on the Fitz and Healthy podcast. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we just want to give you guys information that helps empower you so that you can live a life that's more Fitz and Healthy. So, Cinthanie, what do you have to tell our listeners?
You are a good person and you deserve good things to happen to you.
Amen. Thank you guys for listening so much. Hope you have a Fitz and Healthy day. Ciao. Make sure that you find us on social media. You can find Cinthanie on Instagram and Facebook at Cinthanie. So that's CINTHANIE, and on Snapchat at Cinthanie P. And find me on social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all at Club Fitz Fitness. Remember, that's FITZ Fitness. And on Snapchat, just at Club Fitz. I appreciate your time listening so much. If you enjoyed this episode of the Fitz and Healthy podcast, can you please go do me a favor and go subscribe at whatever platform that it is that you listen to podcasts. Leave a review. We read every single review, and we appreciate the time that you take to leave your thoughts and opinions. Now, also remember, while I am a medical doctor, the information I provide here is not intended to provide medical advice or a professional diagnosis, opinion, treatment, or services to you or to any other individual. I am providing general information for educational and informational purposes only, and it is not a substitute for medical or professional care. You should not use this information in place of a visit, call, consultation, or the advice of your physician or other healthcare provider. The information I share is not intended to treat, cure, or diagnose any disease or medical condition. If you believe you have a medical emergency, just call 911 immediately or your physician. Now, enough of that medical legal jargon. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I appreciate your time. Now, go live a Fitz and Healthy life.